To discuss the aftermath and restoration efforts after the devastating fires, I'm joined now by Kimberly Flook. She's the Deputy Executive Director at the Lahaina Restoration Foundation. Thanks so much for your time. Now, of course, adding to the devastation we just heard about there is the loss of some of Lahaina's culturally rich places and historical landmarks. Tell us about the properties your organisation has been working on to restore and how badly damaged they've been from the fires.
Yes, so Lahaina Restoration is the caretaker of the historic districts in Lahaina. So that covers many blocks and a couple of streets depth. So we are in charge of over a dozen historic sites as well as numerous green spaces in Lahaina. The majority of those were located in the historic district that was most affected. And unfortunately, much like others, we have yet to have our feet in the ground and see the sites, but we have been able to see official footage as well as satellite footage, and so we do have an idea of the damage. The majority of our wooden buildings that we are in charge of were completely destroyed by the fire, whereas our coral, concrete, and lava block wall structures, the wood elements have been lost, but it seems as though the walls are standing. We just have to check to see if they are structurally sound.
Can you give us a little bit of a flavour of what this town, its history and these buildings, meant to the community, to the atmosphere of this very beautiful tourist destination? Talk to us a little bit about the history of the region and what the loss of these buildings mean.
Absolutely. So Hawaii is an amazing place. People around the world know that it's paradise. And every town has a sense of place, but Lahaina's, we feel, stands above all. It is one of the few locations that was important in every single era of Hawaiian history, from the Polynesians arriving, pre-contact with the Western world. Under Kamehameha I, it was the capital of the Kingdom of Hawaii. For a number of years in the 19th century, it was a center of where whaling ships could refuel and restock. It was an early missionary location, and it also moved and was very important in the sugar plantation era. Even early tourism, when the jets started arriving, Lahaina was a destination at that point. So the beauty of Lahaina was not only was it important in every era, but every era was still represented in its architecture. So as you walked down our main street, which is Front Street, you could start at pre-contact and walk through the eras into the plantation era and see living, existing evidence of all of those eras still in place. And that is what we've lost.
And as you say, the wooded properties were all the more vulnerable. Talk to us about, how this town is more vulnerable to fire. Hurricanes, floods, they're more common threats. But why were these fires particularly lethal to these historical buildings? So
Hawaii, as I mentioned, many different eras, and buildings were built in all the different eras. So they didn't have the building codes that we have today, and they used materials that were quick and served their purposes. So a lot of the towns throughout Hawaii, including Lahaina, have a large plantation era history. And plantation era, the building material of choice was wood. So obviously wood is going to be a material that burns very easily during a fire.
And when you eventually return, what will the process be in trying to restore some of these properties back to what you knew them to be, or how many will have to be fully recreated?
Yeah, so we are going to be probably the first thing we're going to do is survey. So we're going to go in, we're going to check for structural soundness of the coral and lava and concrete buildings. Lots of artifacts could easily have survived, stone artifacts and such, so we'll do a survey of our collection items that may have survived, and then we'll prioritize. So what does the community need? What is reachable? What is fundable in the short term? And then we can build to the harder things. So in my imagination, the recreations, if we have to completely rebuild something and that fits the community's needs, that's going to be a little bit further down the road, as opposed to putting wood elements back onto a stone building.
Well, I wish you all the best with the recovery efforts moving forward, and I'm really sorry for your loss and for the community's loss. Kimberly Flook, Deputy Executive Director at the Lahaina Restoration Foundation.